Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I'm here with my buddy and Wager Talk veteran pro, Steve Merril. Welcome to the show, Steve. We're doing these quick hitters, and I think they're going to end up being very popular. 10, 15 minutes, bang, 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 you get information and off you go. So welcome to this edition.
Yeah, thank you, John. Putting a little hit here on Twitter, letting people know we're on live. But of course, most of you are probably watching it on the archive version, which is even better. So hopefully, give you some good information here for what is it, Tuesday, May 4th? One day
Yes,
away from
Tuesday,
Cinco
May
de
4th.
Mayo.
I forgot to designate that. It could have been any day, but you know what is going on right now? I just realized at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, UEFA semifinal number 1 starts over in Paris, right? Yeah.
That's more than I
So
know.
that's an interesting format. You have you have a game, and then it's like a week-long halftime, and then you have the rest of the game.
Oh, wow.
It carries over. So if a team wins, say 1-0, and the home team won 1-0, then they go away to the opponent's home turf, and they have to win. The home team then would have to win by 2-0 to advance. 2 separate games, but it's aggregate.
Yeah, I
And
do like that. Yeah, I mean, I do like that format, though. I don't follow it, but I do like the thought process behind that, though.
yeah, we were. I was with Paul Carr yesterday of True Media Sports, and he's just a guru with this European soccer, and he knows everything about everything with UEFA. And I was kind of chuckling, and I said, what if they had that kind of format in the NFL? Here in the States, semifinal game, it's one and done, and can you imagine winning the second game but not advancing? Because that happens.
Well, we see it a lot in the. I mean, I know you're a baseball guy. You know, in the college ranks and little league and stuff. You know, you have the losers bracket where you drop down after losing a game. I've always kind of liked that format, and you're not out of it, but it's an uphill battle because the problem with like the NFL playoffs and really March Madness as well, and the reason they're probably the two most popular postseasons is the NFL playoffs and March Madness is because of that one and done Cinderella. It's all on the line. You know, truth be told, when you have a 7-game series in the NBA, game one really isn't that important. You know, it just isn't mathematically. And same with baseball as well. So there is something to be said about the one and dones. But if you really want a true champion, you look at the NBA playoffs, the top seeds, the favorites win in the NBA more than any other sport. And that's, of course, because baseball and hockey, you've got a goalie and a pitcher that can make a huge difference, for one team. But yeah, I mean, I've always said, like the Patriots, can you imagine how many more titles they would have if it was a best out of 3 Super Bowl and all those Super Bowls they
Oh,
lost by like 3 points and, other sports and NASCAR too. I know you don't do a lot with NASCAR, but of course I do the NASCAR show on Wager Talk TV. And they switched to a playoff format about 15 years ago instead of just having an overall 36 race cumulative point champion, which was very boring because some guys would have it, locked up with 3 races to go and there's nothing to do. And they went to the playoff format, and I really like the format. They have every 3 races, they eliminate 4 drivers, so you get down to the final 4 for the 10th playoff race. But then it's a winner take all. And like last year, a guy like Kevin Harvick's the first or second most dominant driver all season. He has a bad outing on the 9th race, doesn't make the final 4. He probably would have won it otherwise. And you look at now that the NASCAR's had the playoff over the last 8 or 9 years, there's been like a different champion every year, basically. And it's exciting for the fans, just
yeah.
like the NFL and March Madness, but it's not necessarily the most fair format. So I think the loser bracket's kind of a good hybrid of the two, really, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. The Major League Baseball, doing a little segue here into baseball. Did you see the Phillies over the weekend? Tony Finn actually had some sizable bets on the Phillies, and I think I would have puked. I don't know if he did or not, but I would have died watching. I don't even know what player it was, and I don't like naming names, but the Mets scored a run on a little league play.
Yeah.
Did you see that? I saw it live, and I just was like, "What was that?"
Yeah, and you look at
I
the
mean, that
National
just
League
was like,
East, the
I've never
Mets.
seen that at the major league level.
Well, this is how crazy that division is. Every team basically below
Ugh.
500 after April. And the Mets were technically in third place. Everyone's within like a game, but technically they were
Yep.
in third place, couple games below 500. and FanDuel still had them like even money to win the division and below 500 third place. And that's probably just because they've got the best pitcher in baseball. Like all things equal, hey, he'll go 20% of the games here on out. I guess we make the Mets the favorite. But yeah, it's ironic that was an NL East game with the Phillies and Mets, because it's like these teams just can't get out of their own way. We see that so often in sports, and it's very difficult to back teams like that until you see something different. That's that falling knife syndrome once again.
Yeah, it's right. I did mention that you and I are the only ones that are allowed to permitted to say financial terms like catch a falling knife. And I added a third one on the pub show last night, and it's called whipsaw.
Oh, I know whipsaws. I'm a
So
trend,
we had
I'm a trend
yeah.
follower, so I know whipsaws.
So we had a guy in the chat room say that he sometimes uses the live line to get out of bad bets. And I was like, well, wait a minute, no, don't continue to do that, because if you have a bad bet, don't add money to a game or a team that you would have never bet in the first place. Like if the Eagles are playing the Washington, whatever their team is called now, I almost slipped there. They're playing the team from DC, the football team.
They're the Redskins, by the way, until they have a real nickname, because I grew up there, of course, season ticket holder for 20
Well,
years.
good for you.
So yeah,
Good for you.
it'll still be the Redskins. You definitely won't be offending me. In fact, it offends me that you don't say it, John Ryan.
That's good. That's good. So if you bet the Eagles, Washington is just dominating, and it's 21-3 at halftime, that doesn't mean you go out and bet Washington the second half to try to recoup what is going to be probably a loss. That's a sure recipe for disaster of winning or losing both sides, and that's the whipsaw that is so common in when people try to day trade.
Right.
And you see the market move. Your technical indicator said something, or your gut said to short the market, and all of a sudden it keeps going higher, and you go, oh damn it, I got to cover that, and I'm going to go long. Well, as soon as you do that, it may go long for about another 5-10 minutes, 15, maybe an hour if you're lucky, but then it's going to go against you. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that traders make. And believe me, I've been trading longer than 26 years, but this sports stuff has been 26. So again, the live betting is so similar to the flows of price action in the S&P 500 or Apple Computer or the new UFC stock, which is really exciting too in its own little world there. It's not a little world. Like I said, about 23 billion in market cap now. So they were a real presence, but now they're going to another level. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that for you. Because you and I don't check emails all that much. I was going to send it to you so whipsaw is an approved term now for us to say. So it's catch a falling knife, the dead cat bounce.
Well, and the thing about whipsaw and catch a falling knife too, complete opposites, because momentum is the opposite of whipsaw for me as a trend follower. Is the death of trend followers is whipsaws, and you just learn to accept them. Otherwise, it's a 100% profit. The only reason you can't ride trends one way or the other is because you somewhat say have sideways markets. And the definition of a whipsaw for me is when you go long trying to catch the trend, and then it drops again. So then you're short trying to catch the trend, and it goes up again, and it's just in a channel pattern. And that's a whipsaw for me. Right. That'd be like a team alternating wins and losses would be my definition of whipsaw in the sports betting world. And that would only be a problem, of course, if you're trying to ride streaks with point spread or over-unders. It'd be a team that goes over-under, 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 and you're on the opposite wrong end every single time. Yet you get those teams that cover 4, 5, 10 in a row, and that's the momentum trend following angle. But the thing about whipsaws is that, and as a trend follower, you're only losing a small bit every time. When you catch those trends, you catch those hot teams or those hot over-unders, you're winning 8, 9, 10 in a row. So, you're taking small losses with whipsaws to win big with momentum and trend. What the other problem, though, with that day trading analogy, like in-game betting, teams down 21-3, the adjusted point spread might be 3 touchdowns off what the pregame was, but it's not the same game anymore. The game was 0-0 pregame. Now it's an 18-point game. So, there's true odds to every situation. You have to handicap the situation. You have to figure out what the true odds are. You play that only if there's value at that point, not because you're on one side. Now, the exception, of course, is if you're trying to catch a hedge or a middle, If you're on the positive side up 18, you might want to take a little bit off. But even then, we've talked about this before with hedges. Theoretically, the only time you should ever hedge is if you have an edge with the other bet. Otherwise you're just taking a 50-50 coin flip and giving away some of your long-term perceived profit. The other time I don't mind doing that, though, is if it's a life-changing amount of money. If you're a $300 player and you have a $50,000 payday about to happen, yeah, maybe hedge a little bit and guarantee a $30,000 to $40,000 payday still, or guarantee a $20,000 payday, and let the rest run and try to win big. But it's all money management, and yeah, trying to catch up. That's just like doubling up on the Sunday night football game because you're down after the daytime games. It's the exact same thing. It's just a bad money management. If it's a 50-50 nighttime game, if you have no opinion, if you're doubling up on it, that's just flipping a coin, and it's just bad money management.
Yeah, if you dig a hole deeper than 6 feet, I'm told that it's harder to get out of.
That's right.
I don't know. I was told that. I never saw one, but so in the NBA, intriguing game here. The team on the greatest losing streak right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers, having lost 6 in a row and 6 to the spread.
Yeah.
They're taking on the juggernaut Phoenix Suns, and they're also getting about 13 or more points. And I won't go through the systems or the technicals that I have that support Cleveland, but do you think there's a possibility of making a value bet on Cleveland, or am I just completely reaching?
Well, I'm sure one of those systems you have, and I haven't updated in the last couple of years, but I know long-term for decades, double-digit home dogs in the NBA have been a profitable play. So on the blind.
Yep.
I don't know if that's worked as well in recent years, but I know it worked in the 2000s and, even more recently than that. And it makes sense. And I know extended big dogs on like a 5 or more point spread run, I believe, losing streak have always been good. And it's maybe 6 is the magic number. So yeah, there's a lot of technicals that line up with Cleveland. On the season, they're 24-40 against the spread, 21-43 straight up. So they're a bad team. Phoenix, meanwhile, 46-18, 39-24. They've been one of the best money makers against one of the worst. So you got a lot of contrarian angles. I've gotten away from the contrarian stuff over the years, but it does work. And if you're taking a long-term investment approach, you have probably better than a 53% chance, in my opinion, with Cleveland tonight. I can't come on here and make a fundamental case for it. One thing I will say, though, is I like the fact that Phoenix is off of 4 straight wins. They have a look ahead with no rest against the Hawks on the road tomorrow. So I think you can make a little bit of a situational analysis against them here. I kind of wish they played better against Oklahoma City on Sunday. They were a 15-point road favorite, only won by 3. Maybe that's a sign they're not playing great, but I kind of look at it, maybe they won't overlook this game because of that. I would have liked a better win there, but I think otherwise the setup is pretty good for Cleveland here. And hey, look, everyone has to cover at some point. Another thing, too, is they've had 2 days off. They haven't played since Saturday. Maybe they fixed a couple of their problems. You do have to, though, as you know, John, be careful with these teams that are maybe in tank mode. 7 games ago when they got that winning cover, the 3 before that they lost straight up in ATS. So they're 1-9 straight up in ATS the last 10. And this is a falling knife right now, 0-6 straight up ATS. And, we talk about not trying to catch those falling knives, but we have a lot of wiggle room here with that 13-point spread to maybe catch it. So we'll see. It'd be the only way I would play this, but it's hard to make a case for it.
With Phoenix, though, that 13 points could disappear in a hurry.
Yeah, and by the way, John, Rob Vino brought this up on NBA Tip-Off several months ago on Wager Talk TV, and Phoenix has lost a couple in this situation. But after like the first 3 months of the season, the straight-up winner was 100% against the spread in all Phoenix Sun games, and it's still like almost every game but 3 or so this year, meaning that the Suns either lose outright or they cover. So that's another reason I did not use this game tonight, because Phoenix is the worst team in the league to play against and hope you lose but cover, because that's what you're hoping with the Cavs here,
right?
Is that they stay within 13. And Phoenix is the best team in the league this year as far as the point spread not mattering one way or the other. So if you're really ballsy, and I'll be honest, and you talk about a long-term investment approach, Cleveland money line's probably the way to play it. But that's only around 7-1. Probably not getting a real fair price there. Obviously, that's like a 300-cent line when you get to this range, unfortunately. But Cleveland money line, we can always clip that. If it hits, we can clip it and advertise the show the rest of the week with that soundbite.
Plus 800 at William Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see numbers like that, and I'm certainly not boasting, but one of the best calls. I was actually on a live show too. I called LSU plus 27.5 outright over Florida. I don't know what possessed me to do it, that I said it, and it was plus 950, I think it was. Some days the blind squirrel finds that acorn.
But when you hear that now, like you're thinking, how was LSU ever a 4-touchdown dog to Florida? They've been like the better team the last couple decades. Then again, of course, Cleveland's won some NBA championships, but we all know that was with LeBron.
Yep.
But yeah, but I mean, still, like the pedigree for a team like LSU does not change much year to year. Like the Cavs are awful now without LeBron and those guys. But yeah, in hindsight, I mean, that was probably not a good number, 27.5. That was probably not an accurate price. But yeah, hey, look, Cleveland could win this game. It wouldn't shock me. Nothing shocks me anymore in the NBA, but they definitely haven't shown the ability to compete in these games. You look at their recent wins. They've only won 4 games since late March. They were an 8-point dog at San Antonio, 4-point road dog at OKC, 2-point home dog against Chicago, and 3-point road dog at Charlotte. I mean, that's not murderer's row right there. So yeah, the fact that Phoenix covers and, like you said, can score at will was enough to keep me off of this. But it's an interesting game to talk about because there's a lot of technicals, I'm sure, that line up on Cleveland.
Yeah, but I'm going to stay. After talking with you, I'm going to stay away from it. That's what these shows are all about. Exchanging information just makes you a more astute, whatever it is the subject matter is. This is sports betting, so we're better off because of the exchange, no doubt.
Well, and keep in mind too, the total on this game is like 219. I mean, total in a game like this might have been the 190s a few years ago, and when a lot of those technicals are kicking in, you're talking about like 20% less points maybe. So it's a lot easier to cover a 13 with 220 some points versus, 190 points being scored. So the NBA is definitely a different animal than it was even just 4 or 5 years ago.
And lastly here, I've been, on the 76ers plus 600 to win the Eastern Conference.
Right.
And 5 games ago, although I only bet one of these 5 games as a premium pick for the clients, I said that the Sixers probably could go 11-0 to end the season. They are through the game that I think actually I think you and I might have been talking about. The Spurs was the one that if it was you, we thought that that was going to be the game, and they were dominating, but unfortunately went to overtime, and then Ben Simmons had the tip in, and all was good. And the Bulls last night. 7.5 point closing line. They cover, by a half, but they've won 5 in a row now, and they've won 1 against the spread. So the market is not reflecting where I think they are. And I think even though they've won 5 in a row, I think there's tremendous value betting these guys down the stretch because they know if they win out now, they're the number 1 seed. They have the Rockets tomorrow on the road. Then they have the Pelicans at home with 1 day of rest. Then they play Pistons back-to-back they're the second of the back-to-back, Pelicans, Pistons at home. Then they go to the Pacers away, who have absolutely nothing to play for. And the Sixers will have a chance to score probably 200 points in that one. And then the Heat away, that, I don't know. I see the Sixers probably 7.5 point favorites in that one. And then they end the season with the Magic. So, I mean, they couldn't have an easier schedule to run it out and have the number 1 seed. And you and I have talked a lot about the Nets and the lack of chemistry and how are they just going to flip the switch. Whereas the Sixers, you can see when they play, there's a lot of passion now. Ben Simmons is a totally different player. Just at both ends of the court. The Sixers, we talked about the Lakers, and I guess it was pretty funny yesterday on the NBA show from what I hear. I guess Ski's not going to invite me over to play the piano anymore or something.
Yeah, Rob said you're not going to be able to live your dream of playing his grand piano because, as the messenger, I told him that he can no longer play the Lakers since they're a bad team now. But
yeah,
Ski does. I don't think
realize
Ski's
he's
the
from
type
Los
of guy
Angeles,
that holds grudges. I can't picture Ski being the type of guy that holds grudges, though.
Yeah, because he's like if he gets any cooler or smoother, he's going to fall asleep.
Exactly.
So the reason I brought that up was the Sixers' second unit is vastly better than the Lakers' second unit.
Oh
And
yeah.
you go across the board and look at the starting lineup the Sixers put together, and they can have multiple lineups to match up against certain opponents to their advantage. So I guess I better calm down because I'm pretty high on the Sixers here, and I think they're flying under the radar. Everybody's saying the Nets, everybody's saying some other team. You just don't hear it being talked about unless I guess you're down at Philadelphia in that WIP station.
Yeah, no, look, I told you Teddy Covers also likes him to win the East. And it was
That's
six
right.
to one when we were talking last Friday night. When I actually Saturday night, his show aired on Sirius 204, XM's 204, and I mentioned the Clippers at 6 to 1, I believe. And I'm looking now at FanDuel. Sixers 4.5 to 1 to win the conference. Clippers are down even more. The Clippers are now like 2 or 3 to 1. So maybe they're 6 to 1 to win the championship. Maybe that's what I was thinking when I saw 6 to 1. But the Sixers are still 12 to 1 at FanDuel to win the championship. Phoenix is after them in the 7th spot at 16 to 1. So you've
And it
got,
could be them in the final.
I know you got well, and that's what I talked about earlier. Like the history of the
Yep.
NBA, you see less lower seeds in any sport in history. So we've got the number 1 seed from the East is the 6th favorite overall. And we've got the number 2 seed from the West, maybe a possible 1 seed if they beat Utah. They're only like a game behind as the 7th overall favorite. Utah, by the way, the 4th overall favorite. They're the 1 and 2s right now. So, yeah, this is bizarre. And I know it's been a different season with all the load management. So we'll see if you can just flip a switch and turn it on. But, yeah, I mean, the Sixers also, as we talked about yesterday, John, I mean, they play defense. They've got Ben Simmons, one of the best defenders in the league. And that's so important come playoff time. They're a deep team. They're playing better on the road. I could get why people aren't jumping on them because they haven't seen them do it yet. But look who's ahead of them. Just for the conference odds alone, obviously Brooklyn's ahead of everybody. Milwaukee's ahead of Philly. Philly's only 3rd in the conference odds. Do you really want Milwaukee, who's had the best record in the league for a couple years and has done nothing? They're not even as good this year. So now they're better all of a sudden than when they had the best record in the league and underperformed? I'm not buying that. They had a losing record last year from the restart through the bubble playoffs. Not even above 500 is the 1 seed. So, yeah, I mean, Milwaukee, I'm definitely scratching them. They were overrated when they were the best team in the league, theoretically, with their 1-loss record. So, like, you want them now? Brooklyn, yeah, they could do it. 2 to 1, there's absolutely no value. I wouldn't even play Rob Vino's money on that. And, yeah, I mean, the Sixers at 6 to 1 and 12 to 1 to win the championship makes sense also. And you've kind of, maybe it's because you've talked me into it. I wasn't a huge believer either. It's just the eye test, you're like, wow, I just don't picture them being that team. But then you break it down like you have. Nobody's doing anything any better than they are. And there's sure as a hell a lot more value with them. And look, at 12 to 1, you only have to be right like 8% of the time to break even. I think they have a better than 8% chance of winning the whole thing based on what we've talked about, especially as the 1 seed. I mean, just historically speaking, the 1 seed should be a Final Four team, basically. That gives you a 25% chance right there if that happens. So, yeah, I agree. I think they're vastly underpriced still.
Yeah, and when they come out with the matchups for the finals,
Yeah,
I like the Sixers against the Clippers and the Sixers against the Suns. That
yeah.
would pay off big. That would probably be, oh boy, I would have to say that matchup is going to be approaching 25 to 30 to 1.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the Clippers and the Sixers are my 2 picks right now. And I don't disagree with you on the Suns. And Utah's got, Mitchell's out still. We'll have to see if he gets healthy. With not, it's hard to imagine they make a run. And Utah also, Utah went on that 17-2 point spread run a few months ago, and they've been below 500 against the spread since, as we thought they probably would. But you look back at that too; they were beating a lot of bad teams. They haven't exactly stepped up against good teams. They've been much weaker on the road. And keep in mind, here's something else about that home court. We know they have the altitude advantage. Not as much of a factor in the playoffs because you're not catching any team on a back-to-back. And the Jazz maybe are more accustomed to it. But the rest situation is identical for every team in the NBA playoffs because they played the 7-game series. They're off the same. They're on the same. So maybe the Jazz are a little more used to it than their opponents, but there'll be no fatigue factor. There'll be no 3 and 4 days, 4 and 5 days. And we've seen a lot of that this year. The schedule is more crammed than ever. So I think the altitude edge has been more profound than ever. And Utah's been a much weaker road team, especially defensively. So, yeah, I scratched them. So I'm with you. I think Clippers, Suns. I'm not a believer in the Lakers either. So there'll be some value with Clippers, Suns against Sixers. You can play those. I like that. I very rarely look at like head-to-head matchup futures like that, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I rarely do them too, but this year is different.
When you're going to get a good payoff. I mean, your money's only going to be tied up for like 2 months. And the other thing about futures is I always talk about tying your money up. So you want long shots so you don't have to risk as much because your money is tied up. But The other reason too is because you get in a much better position to hedge. And if you're getting, like, I agree with you, at least say 30-1 on Suns, Clippers, Sixers will be a little lower. Suns, Sixers will be higher, but just say 30-1 on either of those, if not better. You get to the final, the final four, the conference finals in each one, you can definitely start hedging at that situation if you still have your teams alive. So then you've kind of got to bet on the Sixers just making the Eastern Conference Finals. You don't even have to win it at that point, and you got a lot of options. It could be a lot of fun actually to have those options available.
Yeah, I just pulled up the away win percentage. 76ers are 58% for the season at 19-14. Suns are number one, 21-9.
Yeah, I like that. They can win on the road.
And then, the Lakers surprisingly are 59%, 19-13, but I'd have to see what games those are.
Yeah.
Spurs and then the Clippers, 18-13. So, the Nets, 18-14, but of course that's not with the big three. And I'm kind of tired of hearing well, wait till they play with the big three. Well,
yeah, and think about this, John.
That's why I think the thing comes unglued.
Well, and think about this too. Durant obviously is a great player. I like Durant a lot. I think he's one of the best ever. But come playoff time, do you really want Kyrie Irving or James Harden out there? Harden's a defensive liability normally, and he was the third guy at OKC with Durant. They blew that 2-0 lead years ago in the finals. I'm not going to blame Harden for that, but he's never won it still. Kyrie's had some big-time playoff games with Cleveland, so I don't mind him, but he's kind of a flake still. Andy Lang and I like to joke all that. He still thinks the world is flat, and the guy went to Duke. So, it's I'm not sure those are exactly like big-time clutch guys I want on my lineup. So, and then that's not even bringing in the fact, like you said, that they haven't been together that much. They might be better off if Harden doesn't come back, to be honest. I almost think like Irving, Durant might be a better playoff lineup than all three of them. And I think the fact that Harden will probably be in, be out, I think, there's some chaos that could happen there. It's another reason to like the Sixers because I'm crossing the Bucks off. Lots of concerns with the Nets. Yeah, I think there's some good value at 6-1 in the East, 12-1 to win it all. And I like that head-to-head matchup idea as well.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out when time has come. But I know you probably have to get to another show. We have the Manny's Pub Predictive Playbook show with I guess they're my sidekicks. Is that what you call them?
Your aliases.
Tony Finn and Rob Vino. I couldn't ask for two better guys to do that every single day. We started basically 4:05. We moved it up half an hour. So granted, we in the East Coast here can have a beer at that time. You can do whatever you want in the West Coast. I'm not saying you shouldn't drink it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but if you want to see 9 o'clock at night West Coast time, it's probably easier not to have beers at 1 o'clock. I've been told that.
Well,
so we have that coming up. And
I think Tony can have a beer whenever he wants. Plus, he's in Vegas, so it's 1 o'clock for him, so it works out well.
Yeah, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas or something like that. That's another thing I heard.
What happens in Tony Finn's head needs to stay in Tony Finn's head. That's another thing we should be saying.
Well, I want you to watch.
I'm going to try to stop by on. I'll try to stop by on Friday and join you guys in the pub.
I'll tell you one thing. If you can watch tonight in the beginning, I'm actually going to be in Ski's house, and nice. Just to prove Rob Vino that there's no hard feelings between Ski and myself.
You're going to have the Liberace background. Is that the one you're pulling up?
Well, I might even play the grand piano. You never know,
nice.
But. I'm going to show proof that that I'm welcome at his pad. That's what they call it in LA.
Well, the Lakers did win last night, so he's probably in a good mood. It'd be a good time to sneak into the pad. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God they did win. So lastly here, Steve has a $30 off a 3 or 7 day pass with the promo code STEVE30. That's Steve 30, all capital letters. And I have one, and these are, exclusive to the show. And it's a way of us, Steve and I, and any guest I have on saying thank you for being so supportive of these shows. Mine is you take one of my daily picks. I have 3 up there. I may have a 4th. You pick one of them. It's already discounted at $19 off of the $25 regular price. And then you get 60% more off the 19. So it comes down to $7. And I always like making these sales equivalent to a craft beer because I personally can relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of you out there watching this show can relate to it as well. So It's easy to buy a beer. It's easy to do this too. So use the promo code. What was the promo code here? The promo code for me is JR60. So that's small j, small r, 60. Steve's deal is $30 off using Steve capital letters, 30. That's at Wager Talk. I'm at Sports Memo. I'm sure you'll be able to find us. And if not, send us a direct message and we'll help you out. So for Steve, thanks for being on the show, of course. And for Steve, myself, the Predictive Playbook, sportsmemo.com, wagertalk.com. May all the wins be yours.